I'm happy to. Well, I grew up in Northern Kentucky, actually Fort Mitchell, and had just an absolute wonderful childhood. I always say I won the lottery with my parents. Had great parents that were very supportive. I have an older brother and younger sister, and I always joke that I spent most of my life saying I wanted to get the heck out of Northern Kentucky, and now I live just a few streets down from my parents. So I did get out for a little bit, but I came back. And, now I live just a few streets away from my parents and where I grew up. And with my husband, Greg, who I also won the lottery on that. We just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. Very exciting.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And our three kids. So I have my oldest daughter, Madeline, just graduated from University of Virginia and is actually pursuing a career in marketing and advertising. And my middle one, Olivia, is a sophomore at University of South Carolina. And then my son, Will, is a senior at Covington Catholic High School here in Northern Kentucky. So, from a career perspective, I went to Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, for undergrad and majored in marketing and worked a few years in Cincinnati in marketing and product management, and then went back to get my MBA. I quit work and went back to get my MBA at University of Chicago after working about 5 years, and spent 2 years at University of Chicago and got a concentration in strategy and finance, and then went into management consulting. So I worked for Deloitte Consulting for about 5 years after that, working with large kind of Fortune 500 companies on anything from, strategy to operations improvement. And then, I had my first child and decided traveling 5 days a week really wasn't conducive to having a baby and family life. And so that's when Intrinsic was born. And I started that. I actually purchased the business. It was it was very small. It was basically just one person. But my kind of goal was to take that and grow us into a full service marketing firm. And so for the last 21 plus years, that's what I've been doing. We are a marketing and branding firm, and we really think that the way that we approach our work is unique. Our goal is to really look at a company and understand its culture and their people and how they do business, and try to develop that into their differentiator. And so we typically work with companies that really believe that their culture is what makes them unique, and that their people are their key to success. And so those are the type of companies that we typically work with. But we work with all different size companies, from a P&G down to some startups, and we work in a variety of industries, including financial services, healthcare, construction. We've worked with a number of startups, as I mentioned, and we have a team of about 14 people. And about a year ago, I actually sold the business to a company by the name of Graphic Village in Cincinnati. And their roots are traditionally in printing, but really they've evolved to be more of a full service marketing solution for their clients. So right now we're actually operating as a division of Graphic Village, still using the Intrinsic brand. So it really hasn't been that different for most of our clients and our team. So yeah. I'm sorry that was a little long-winded, but that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. It sounds like you've really come a long way in your career.
Well, there's a longer way to go.
Yeah. So kind of on a pivot then, can you tell us how you're engaged in your community and what inspired you to get engaged?
Yes. Well, my parents, I think from a young age, I was very, I guess, kind of exposed to my parents being very involved in the community. Whether that was like sitting on a board or helping with fundraisers, or just, getting, my parents always seemed to get involved in whatever activities or sports that we were doing. So they were very involved. So I think it just kind of, really came natural to me.
Mhm.
One of the reasons that I wanted to do my own business and start my own business is because I did want to be able to make a bigger impact on the community. And we do, Intrinsic has always done a lot of pro bono work,
Mhm.
with a variety of organizations. And I've worked and been a part of so many, like from the United Way to, Catholic charities, to really being involved in fundraising at my kids' schools and in their, various kind of sporting activities and so forth that they've done. Two that I'm very actively involved with right now are the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Cincinnati.
Mhm.
I've been on their board for about 12 years.
Oh
And
wow.
it's one of those things where I keep saying I might roll off and move on, but I just so, believe in their mission.
Mhm.
First of all, it's kids. I mean, who doesn't want to help kids? And, really, I mentioned like I had a great foundation growing up, and it's difficult to see kids that don't have that foundation. It's like, how can you help them? And that's really what the Boys and Girls Club does. And they really are providing that foundation when the parents can't be there. I mean, some of the situations are really sad, and there might be like a drug addiction, but other cases are just, really good, hardworking single parents, excuse me, that maybe have to work three jobs, and they just, they can't be there for their kids because they're constantly working to stay afloat. And the Boys and Girls Club is all about, providing that foundation. And so, anything that I can do to help them, kind of get their message out and continue to support them, I've done. And so that's, an easy kind of, no brainer, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
The other one that I'm really involved in right now is I sit on the board, or I'm actually chairing the advisory board for the College of Informatics at Northern Kentucky University.
Yeah.
And, this one is probably a little bit different than most of, I've typically been more involved in social organizations, but I think, as I've gotten older and really, I guess, learn the critical elements that make a community and what makes a vibrant community, having that strong kind of academic institution is very important. And NKU is, very much about, providing access to all levels of students. And then, really making sure that they're prepared for the workforce, in the greater Cincinnati area. And so I've just really, while I didn't, go to NKU, it's really, it's come so far since I graduated. And I feel like it's kind of a hidden gem in Northern Kentucky. And so, anything that I can do to kind of help them, promote, the programs that they have and the success that they have, in particular, for the College of Informatics, I really am passionate about doing. So I've been very involved in that. So those are the two that I'm most involved with right now. But that's something that kind of changes, every few years.
Yeah. Wow, it sounds like you have a lot going for you then. So with that in mind, what are some ways you implement self-care in your schedule?
Um, Well, I think, first and foremost, I, just try to pay attention to my health. And I guess the last year, right, we've all kind of been focused on that more than ever. But, I think in general, like the things that I try to do, is like kind of get a mental break. So, I, enjoy exercise. We've kind of, over the years, have built a little bit of a home gym in our basement, which certainly has come in handy this last year. Um, we added in the spring a Peloton to that. So that's something
Mm.
that I've kind of been getting into and enjoying. I can't say I'm very good at it yet, but I'm a work in process for sure. But one of the other things that I really try to do is make myself, go to bed at a reasonable hour. I think, for any moms that are listening, I think that's a lot of times your only kind of downtime, where, the house isn't in, chaos or a lot of action. And so I kind of found myself tending to stay up later and later. And so I've learned to really kind of force myself to go to bed, because, if you're, if you're exercising, you're feeling good and you have a decent amount of sleep, you're going to kind of bring your best self to work, to your family, etc. And then, I think, ultimately, my kind of number one getaway is reading. I'm a pretty avid reader. I, read every night before I go to bed. I kind of always have some books in the queue. And I'll read just about anything, but generally speaking, I like to keep it light because it kind of just takes me away. I don't want to add to any stress and problems,
Yeah.
when I'm reading. And then of course I'll throw in the occasional, Netflix binge or something like that. So I do that too, but I try to limit that.
Yeah. So between your work and your um, community work and everything else, where would we typically find you at 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning?
Um, well, that's something that's changed in the last year. So it used to be probably for about the last 15 years, most likely one of my kids' sporting events. But they've all retired from their various sports in the last year. So that's been a big change for me, and certainly has freed up my weekends.
Hmm.
That's for sure. I would say right now I might be exercising, maybe out taking a walk, running errands, catching up on, things that you kind of can't get to during the week. And in the summer, most likely we have a lake house in Tennessee at Norris Lake. So maybe I'd be out paddle boarding or, fixing breakfast for, friends that we have down visiting. So one of those things, most likely.
Yeah, that all sounds like a lot of fun. So again, changing gears just a little bit, I want to ask what leadership means to you and what you consider your leadership style to be.
Well, I mean, I think my definition of leadership has really, I guess, evolved over the years. I guess is to be expected. I think early in my career, I kind of felt like leadership was about having all the answers and kind of being directive, quite honestly. And the reality of that is that gets exhausting because it's it's impossible for one person to have all the answers and be an expert at so many things that you need to be when you run a business. And it's just really not sustainable. And so
Yeah.
over the course of the last 20 years, I've discovered it's more about, really inspiring people towards a common goal
Hmm.
and bringing, the right mix of people together, and, kind of understanding your strengths and your weaknesses, and then making sure that you have people around that complement you,
Yeah.
certainly complement your weaknesses, and building a strong team that, as I always say, hire smarter than you and more experienced than you. And then, together you make those decisions. And so, it's really about collaboration and coaching and inspiring, and less about, kind of dictating. And, ultimately it's just trying to unlock, that potential in people so that they can, kind of be the best that they can be in their positions and their jobs. And, I
Yeah.
think if you do those things and then you kind of combine that with, setting some, you set the, you combine, set the direction, and then set some clear expectations and boundaries, and, really let people kind of do their thing, because most people will step up and do that.
Yeah. I love that. I really love that answer. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
So to build on that,
Mhm.
what qualities do you think make a great leader? And is there a particular leader you look up to?
I think, qualities, there's a lot of qualities I think that make a good leader. I mean, I think, just intelligence, certainly is one of them. It's not, the only thing. I think being empathetic, humble, a person of integrity, a good communicator. I think, passionate about what they're doing, and someone that's a kind of like a lifelong learner, and doesn't always have to be right. Like they're willing to listen, and entertain, other people's, perspectives and ideas.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of people that I respect as a leader, I mean, there's like so many. I mean, you think there's so many great examples of leaders, out there, in particular in the business world. Just in my experience, I brought in a partner about 10 years ago. I mean, classic case of hiring somebody with more experience and smarter than you.
Hmm.
And, I really have always admired his leadership style. I mean, he's like, we're very different personalities, kind of, going back to hiring someone that complements you. Um, but he's just a very kind of like thoughtful, lifelong student. And he really researches any decision and explores options, and really is always operating in the best interest of the team and,
Yeah.
the company overall, which is, just really what you want. And you really can't ask for more than that in a leader. And I mean, he's, a hard worker, and just, he won't ask anybody to do something that he wouldn't do himself. And I think he, has really done a great job inspiring our team.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because I was thinking a little bit about this, and another person that comes to mind is someone that has like a very different personality than him, which tells you that leaders, great leaders can come in all, different personality types. And this is someone that I worked with at Deloitte, and her name is Diana O'Brien. I think she might have just retired. And honestly, I didn't work that closely with her, but I just kind of always admired her from afar, and we became good friends. And I mean, she's just one of those people that's like an eternal optimist and just super positive, and always, pulling people up, and encouraging and nurturing. And, those are like amazing qualities to have, but you might think that she might be a pushover. And, she wasn't. She was also very honest and direct, and, set clear expectations with her team. So it was very, clear as to what was expected of them. And I think, she's just another example of a great leader, but, kind of different than my partner, Dave, in their personalities, but both great end results.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. Leaders come in all shapes and sizes. And the more different leaders you have, the more successful you're going to be because you
Right.
get all those views. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So, why is it important to have a mentor? And what are some steps that you would suggest using to build that type of relationship?
Um, wow. Well, I think it's very important because, a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, I think when you are like when you're in a situation, and you're very vested in it, a lot of times you lose perspective. And
Hmm.
so I think, a mentor is someone who's not so close to it that they're not objective. I mean, there's someone that can kind of really give you an objective advice and opinion that doesn't really have skin in the game. And I think that that's, very valuable to kind of have that outside perspective of someone that really just kind of has your best interest in mind, and doesn't have like, another agenda.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that it's also, I think it's also good to have someone that'll just kind of be brutally honest with you. It's, you find that not everyone is really good at giving feedback. And so I think having, someone, help you, understand maybe what are some things do you need to tweak or change or improve upon, is really valuable. I mean, it's funny because I, like, looking back, I mean, I had so many mentors, and I don't even know that I realized they were mentors at the time. Um, but, one of them, I remember very early on in my very first job, I happened to get, like I happened to get assigned to this project to work on a proposal with the vice president. I mean, he was like 4 or 5 levels above me. I mean, I was like an entry level, nobody. And so I had to work on this proposal, and literally I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I mean, I remember just sitting at like my desk, not knowing what to, I mean, I really had no idea. And I was like kind of too scared to ask for help. And I just struggled through it and delivered something that was just awful. And I think when he read it, I remember he kind of started laughing. And I mean, it was just an absolute fail. I don't know what else to say, but I think, he must have saw something in me and like encouraged me. And I think he realized like with a little direction and encouragement and help, I could, move on and do better things. And so he really, I think what he did, I mean, obviously gave me confidence and helped me, but he also gave me additional opportunities. And I think that's something else that a mentor can do is help you spot opportunities to advance in your career. In terms of like some specific things that you can do, I think, think a little bit about and maybe document, what are the things that you would want in a mentor? I mean, what are some challenges that you're having, or maybe what are some goals that you're trying to achieve? And, how do you think maybe a mentor could help? Because that kind of can determine the type, who that best mentor would be. Secondly, I mean, I think, let others know that you're looking for a mentor. I mean, maybe your parents or a coworker or a friend, or, your Girl Scout troop leader, or a peer in the office. Let people know that you're looking for a mentor because, most people want to help. And I think, that's, what I've learned is like, it's all about, connections and connecting, one person to another person. And so you have to kind of speak up and let people know that that's what you're looking for. And then finally, I just say, just ask. I mean, if there's someone that you think, wow, this would be the perfect mentor for me, just ask. I mean, all they can say is no. And what I have found is that most people want to help. I mean, most people want to help other people. I mean, the timing may not always be right, but all they can say is no. And then maybe they could recommend somebody else if they can't do it. So I think it's, don't be shy.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. How do you motivate yourself and stay motivated?
That's a good question. This is something that's changed, a lot over the years. I think, in the early years, it's kind of like, you're came out of college and just kind of wanted to set the world on fire. And it didn't take much to motivate me, just because I had big dreams and goals and, all that good stuff. So I was kind of always thinking a couple steps ahead and what's it going to take to get to the next level, and, working on that. So it kind of just came, I guess, more naturally or intrinsically, to me. I think, as I've grown, it's not about me. It's more about other people. Like how, because that's kind of more where my passion is now. How can I help the community? How can, I help our team members? How can I help our clients, achieve what they're trying to achieve? How can I help my kids, get into that college, or, achieve one of the, get their first job. My daughter just went through that. So I think, you kind of have to tap into, really what your passions are at that time. And if you can marry that up, I guess, with your, career and what you want to accomplish, I think the motivation comes somewhat naturally.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful advice. If you follow your passion, everything else should be a lot easier.
Sometimes easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to look for the little things, that little pieces of a job or a position or an opportunity that, that motivate you. It may not be, the overall, position as a whole, but there's usually something you can find in any situation that you can learn from or build upon.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we are currently in the midst of the Girl Scout cookie program. What advice do you have for Girl Scouts who want to become entrepreneurs, or for women looking to grow their own business or within the company they work for?
Well, I mean, I guess, first and foremost, I would say, just kind of, go for it. I think it doesn't have to be complicated in many ways. I mean, sometimes I think people, think that you need some big elaborate plan. But, the reality is that, if you focus on a handful of things and just do them well, usually, you'll be successful. Um, Another thing that I really like to, encourage people to do is try new things. It doesn't have to be 10 new things. It could just be one, and maybe set like a small goal of trying one new way to sell cookies. And I mean, my gosh, no time like the present, right? I got to believe this year it's going to be extremely different than how you've done this in the past. I mean, so maybe it's a great time to get creative. Maybe you create a video that you push out on social media where, I don't know, I mean, like you maybe highlight the different types of cookies. And I mean, I'm sure the sky's the limit. I'm sure someone your age can come up with something more creative, than I ever could on that front. But I think if you set a goal of trying something, what's the worst thing that's going to happen is it doesn't work, big deal. Then, you learn something from it. You learn something that doesn't work and you go try something different. And so I think just don't be afraid to fail. I always say fail early and fail often. And, my experience, I've always learned twice as much from my failures as I have from my successes. So, don't be afraid to just go out there and try something new, maybe a new sales pitch, maybe, a new way to sell, et cetera. And, I always say, I mean, I still say this in my business. I mean, I'm really not that much smarter than anybody else. But, I'm willing to work hard. I persevere. I'm willing to try new things, and I'm willing to fail, and, I believe in myself. So I think if you kind of have those underlying principles, I mean, you're going to figure it out eventually, right? You're going to keep trying and you're going to figure it out. So I don't know how great of advice that is. I think if you're in a professional position, either growing a business or, just out there in a job and want to continue to progress and grow, one of the biggest things I have found and tools that I have found is getting feedback. And somebody once told me feedback is a gift. And I just love the way that is phrased, because a lot of people are very afraid of feedback. They view it as negative and maybe something wrong with them. And, I view it completely different. I view it as opportunity to learn something and maybe tweak or change something, or better yet, learn something you're doing well and do more of it. So, if you're a business owner, talk to your clients, get feedback from them, ask them what you're doing well, ask them what you could be doing better, and why. Maybe you could ask them, what are other products or services that you need that maybe we could fulfill for you. Talk to your vendors. If you're in a position, ask your peers for feedback on, what are 3 things that you think I do really well? Maybe what are 3 things that you think I could improve upon to, progress in my career? And I think when you're asking for feedback, you need to ask specific questions. You can't keep it general. And you also need to give people license to give you, some constructive criticism. You need to allow them to do that, because most people don't want to do that, right? I mean, they don't want to hurt your feelings. But if it's something where you say, look, I'm looking to grow and improve, and feedback is part of the process, so I want your, honest opinion on, again, things that I can do to kind of get to the next level, they'll do that. And, I have found when I have had either mentors or managers in my career that gave me honest feedback that sometimes wasn't pleasant to hear, that's when I really grew and took big strides in my career. So I think you have to, if you're gonna do that, you got to be willing to listen and tweak and change. So don't go down that path if you're not willing to do that. But I think it's something that can really be powerful if you're willing to do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what advice do you have for mothers who want to move forward in their career, but also balance that with their personal life and passions?
This is a tough one because I honestly don't know that I have ever successfully done this. I think, I'm a work in process, I guess, just like everybody else. But, and I mean, the reality is, I think when my kids were young, and, I mean, at one point I had, 3 kids under, maybe 4 and under, and starting a business. I mean, it's just insane. I was a hot mess, and kind of living on the edge. But I guess, kind of what I've learned over the years is that, you have to, somebody kind of said to me once, you can have it all, just not at the same time. And I think that I think that that's fairly accurate. I tried to challenge that at many times, but I think ultimately it's accurate. But I think that there's a constant process that you have to go through of weighing what your priorities are. I
Yeah.
mean, not everything can bubble up to the top all the time, and those are going to change. I mean, they might change, month to month. They might change year to year. But I think, understand, writing those down, what those priorities are, I think will help you, ultimately make choices, because that's what it boils down to, is you're making choices about how you're going to spend your time. And, I think if once you do that, I think, one, you have to set some boundaries. And again, I think that those are based on, those priorities that you lay out. And, the boundaries, I mean, it could be, I'm not going to check my email after 6 o'clock every night. It could be, at dinner time, everybody's putting their phones over to the side, and we're going to just have 1 hour where it's just family time. Or, maybe it's, I'm not going to schedule any meetings till 9 a.m. because, my health is very important and I want to work out before that. So those are different for every person. But, I think that it's important to establish those. Something else kind of along these same lines is, learn how to say no. Unfortunately, I figured this out way too late. And I'm sure if by chance my husband tuned in or is even around in the room and can hear me, he's probably laughing right now, because at one point he literally made me practice saying no. No, I'm a little overextended right now. I can't take anything else on. He made me role play, to say no to people, because I think as women, it's like you first of all, you want to get involved, and you want to please everyone, so you don't say no very often. Second, I'm kind of an idea person, so I think when people present new ideas or opportunities to me, I always want to say yes, because I'm kind of following the shiny object. That's my personality. And so you have to learn to say no, and you just simply cannot do everything. And I think the sooner you become comfortable with that, the better off you're going to be in the long run. And again, I mean, that those no's should correspond with, what your priorities are at that time. And what I have found, like in your career, if you're getting offered a certain job right now that maybe you have to say no to, chances are something similar is going to be available a year from now, or 2 years from now, or whenever it is you're ready. I mean, if they're asking you to chair the big fundraiser at school, God knows that's going to be there in a year or two. I mean, so it's really, learning, your time is your biggest, right? Your biggest kind of asset. And you have to protect that fiercely. I think, another thing is just learn to delegate. I mean, again, another thing that I probably learned too late, but your kids are able to do more than you think they are. Your team is able to do more than you probably think they can. There's creative ways to get other people, if you're selling Girl Scout cookies, I mean, you might have a little sibling that can help you out, and maybe you offer them a free box of cookies, or, so I'm sure you can get creative on that. Or maybe just talk them into it, as most older siblings do, right? And never actually deliver, on the cookies. And so I think you getting creative on how do you kind of spread the work out a little bit, so that everything's not falling on your shoulders. And then, I guess finally, I think it's you have to learn to let go of perfectionism and perfection. I mean, I think, 99 times out of 100, probably your 80 or 85% is good enough. That probably exceeds expectations. and that last 10 or 15% to make something perfect, probably only you will notice the difference. Most others will probably not notice the difference. And the amount of energy and time you expend on that is usually not worth the improvement. I mean, it's kind of the classic, economic term of diminishing returns. And so, I mean, really think about, is 75% okay here? Is that going to exceed expectations? And I'm not saying don't meet expectations of whatever you're doing. I'm saying don't constantly over deliver and what it
Yeah.
is. And I think a lot of people have a tendency to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good advice. I think everyone can use a little bit more of the word no in their life sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you uplift other people and their achievements without doubting your own self-worth?
I think that's a great question. I mean, I think especially, in this age of social media where really all you see is everyone else's success and the great things that, they're doing and so forth. So it's really, I think it's really easy to doubt yourself or be jealous or, feel like you're not measuring up. I think, to me, a lot of this goes back to kind of your perspective on things and kind of how you view the world. I think like growing up, I played a lot of sports and there's winners, there's losers. You kind of have this like win-loss mentality. Like if somebody won, then somebody lost. And so if somebody else is winning, you almost think like maybe you're not winning. And
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of a mindset that you have to change because in the real world, like in the business world, um, you can have multiple winners. I mean, everybody can win. There's not like there's only one winner.
Mhm.
Everybody can win. And so I think if you think about it like that, it's not like an either or scenario. Um, and you kind of have to retrain your mind almost to be like, wow, that's really cool. And kind of the second, piece, I guess, or build on that is, kind of being a lifelong learner, which I think everyone really has to be these days, as much as things change and how quickly they change, is, use it as an opportunity. Like when you see someone succeed, um, get curious. I mean, how did they get there? I mean, what were their obstacles that they overcame? Because all you see is a success. You don't see the path and the hardship, maybe that somebody went through to reach their success. And so I think if you view it as a learning opportunity, do some research on that person, see what they had to overcome, and maybe use it as an opportunity to learn from it and inspire you, versus making you feel, less about yourself. And I think you just have to recognize that really everybody has their own journey, and just to kind of respect your own journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so our last question for you tonight is, what do you believe the biggest challenge for the next generation of female leaders will be, and what advice would you give them?
Oh, that's a big question. Well, I mean, I think the good news is that a lot of progress has been made. I mean, certainly since I, started my career and came out of college, everybody talked kind of about the glass ceiling and
Mhm.
women not being able to break, into like the C-suite or, those upper level positions, whether that's in the business world or politics or what have you. I think that women have done that. I mean, I think we have broken the glass ceiling, and we see, female CEOs. We see, women that sit on boards of large companies, successful, physicians, and I mean, just in Hollywood, you've got, like a Reese Witherspoon who has her own production company and now is producing her own content, and it's, for women and all female actresses. And so I think we have lots of examples. I think well, I mean, we're going to have a female vice president, I mean, as of what, tomorrow. And so, I mean, I think that we have a lot of role models and examples. And I think now it's about how does that become the norm versus the exception?
Yeah.
And how do we see lots of examples of those, versus kind of just the one-offs? And, I think that that's going to, it still takes a lot of work. I think for the women that have succeeded and done that, they need to be mentors. They need to pull women up, give women opportunities, and spot opportunities for them, and help women have their voice, or younger women, like in their organization or that they work with. I think for younger, young women and girls, coming up through high school and college and starting their careers, I just say, be bold. There's really never been a better time. I think the world is ready to listen to you. So be bold. Go out and find your voice and speak it. And I think the earlier in your life that you can figure out like how to become comfortable being uncomfortable, the better off you're going to be. And I think kind of training yourself to kind of go out of your comfort zone. I mean, just kind of like we were talking about with selling the cookies. I mean, try one new thing. I mean, maybe it's raising your hand in class and speaking up in class if you don't do that very often.
Yeah.
Maybe it's trying a new activity. I mean, it could be anything. And I think the more that you train yourself to get out of your comfort zone, you're going to be open to more opportunities. And then you're going to, pursue those opportunities and try new things. And I think that's important. So that's the norm for girls versus the exception.
Yeah. That's wonderful advice. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay. Well, that was our last question for you tonight. So if we don't have any questions asked by the audience.
We did not have any questions come in.
Okay.
I think you guys covered it all.
I know. I'm sorry. I realize I talked a lot. I'm really sorry.
No, the advice was so great.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my key takeaways were: don't be afraid to fail. Feedback is a gift, and learn to say no. I think it's great advice no matter what stage of life you're in. So thank you so much, Wendy.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you, Mary Laura, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Laura.
Yeah, thank you.
Great
and
job.
Thank you everyone that tuned in. We do have our next segment coming up February 2nd. We have Joanne Kinneard and Molly Edmondson. So they will be joining us February 2nd at 4:30. So be sure to tune in for that one. And again, if there's no more questions, thank you all for being here and have a great evening.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.